Good morning, students. Myself, Dr. Asha Rani, will be dealing with our last session of mineral metabolism, that is, metabolism of sodium, chloride, and potassium. The specific learning objectives of today's sessions are to enumerate the functions of sodium, potassium, and chloride, to mention the reference range of serum sodium, serum potassium, and serum chloride, to discuss the therapeutic role of lithium. Nutrients are the substances in the food that are required for provision of energy, growth, and regulation of body process. Based on daily requirement, nutrients are classified into macronutrients and micronutrients. Macronutrients are required in large amounts, that is in bulk quantities, and they mainly provide energy. Macronutrients include carbohydrate, lipids, and proteins. They are also called as proximate principles since they form bulk of food together with water. Micronutrients are required in small quantities and they are required for growth, metabolism, and cellular regulation. They include vitamins and minerals. One of the important micronutrients are minerals. Minerals are inorganic compounds that are required in small proportion for the body as one of the nutrients. Based on their daily requirement, minerals are classified into two major groups. One is macro mineral, that is principal elements if the requirement is more than 100 milligram per day. If the requirement is less than 100 milligram per day, they are termed as microminerals or trace elements. Examples for macrominerals are calcium, phosphorus, manganese, sodium, potassium, chloride, and sulfur. Examples for microminerals are iron, copper, iodine, fluoride, chromium, manganese, molybdenum, selenium, and zinc. Most of the trace elements or microminerals are metals except for iodine and fluoride, which are halogens. Today's session is about metabolism of three important macrominerals, that is sodium, potassium, and chloride. They are very important electrolytes in our body. So we will learn about the metabolism of these electrolytes under these three headings: distribution of these electrolytes, their requirement and sources, and finally the biochemical functions of these three important electrolytes. Now we will see the metabolism of sodium. If you see the total body content or distribution of sodium, majority of sodium is present in bones, that is 50% of total body content of sodium is present in bones, 40% is present in extracellular fluid, and another 10% is present in soft tissues. Sodium is a major extracellular cation and present as sodium chloride or sodium bicarbonate. So this extracellular concentration is maintained by a very important pump, that is sodium potassium ATPase pump. Coming to the reference range of serum sodium, it is 135 to 146 milliequivalents per liter. Daily requirement of sodium is around 1 to 5 grams per day. In hypertensive patients, the requirement is less than or equal to 1 gram per day because increase in sodium will increase the blood pressure. Coming to the sources, the major source how we take or consume sodium is through table salt, that is sodium chloride. Other sources are whole grains, vegetables, nuts, egg, milk, bread, and processed food. Metabolism of sodium. Sodium is readily absorbed in the gastrointestinal tract. There are two mechanisms which operates in GIT. One is the diffusion. The membranes are freely permeable for sodium. So the one mechanism is through diffusion. Sodium is absorbed in GIT. Second mechanism is a symport with glucose and amino acid. This already you have learnt in digestion and absorption of carbohydrates and proteins. We have a sodium dependent glucose transporters. So with the help of these two mechanisms, that is through diffusion and symport mechanism, sodium is readily absorbed in the GIT. Coming to the excretion, kidney is the major route of excretion. Around 800 grams per day of sodium is filtered by the glomerulus, but we have an efficient mechanism in place which will help in reabsorption of 99% of the filtered sodium in the tubules. That means we will be excreting less than or equal to 1% of this filtered sodium in urine. Apart from this, sweating is also another route where there is loss of sodium, but it is a minor route. But in conditions of severe sweating and in summer season, this becomes the major route of loss of sodium. Apart from these two ways, in conditions of diarrhea, large amount of sodium can be excreted or lost through GIT. Kidneys are the major route of sodium excretion. Around 800 grams of sodium is filtered, but less than 1% of this filtered sodium is excreted. That means urinary sodium output is regulated very efficiently by the body. These are the various mechanisms by which urinary sodium output is regulated. That is glomerular filtration rate, tubular reabsorption mechanism, neuronal mechanism, and hormonal mechanisms. Details of this will be dealt when we teach you water and electrolyte balance.
Now we will see the functions of sodium. Sodium exerts and maintains osmotic pressure of extracellular fluid and thereby helps it retaining water in ECF. In association with chloride and bicarbonate, sodium regulates body's acid-base balance. Along with this, due to sodium and hydrogen exchange in renal tubule, it helps in acidifying urine. Sodium is also involved in absorption of glucose via sodium-dependent glucose transporters, that is sodium-dependent GLUTs, and also helps in absorption of amino acids in the intestine. Sodium has a role in resting membrane potential. The cations are distributed across the cell membrane of nerve fibers in such a way that membrane exterior is slightly positive compared to the interior of the membrane. So which is mainly due to the sodium concentration which is high outside than the inside of the membrane. So this will set up a potential difference known as resting membrane potential. So whenever there is a stimulus, there is localized permeability to sodium resulting in movement of these ions inside in the cell. Such an influx of positive ions result in the interior becoming slightly electropositive in relation to the exterior. That is, there is generation of action potential. This results in nerve impulse. So this is how it helps in muscle and nerve irritability or neuromuscular excitability.
We saw the functions of sodium. In majority of the times, whether to transport amino acids, glucose, or to generate an action potential, there is a movement of sodium into the cell. But actually, the cell should have high concentration of potassium inside the cell and low concentration of sodium, which is very essential for the survival of the cell. But because of these functions, there is entry of sodium into the cell. Now, if you want to have a cell to survive, then you have to move this sodium out of the cell. So that is done by a very important pump, that is sodium potassium ATPase pump. Actually, this pump is an enzyme which hydrolyzes the ATP and uses this energy to transport 3 sodium ions outside the cell. Simultaneously, 2 potassium ions are moved into the cell. So this pump is very active in nervous tissue, muscle fibers, renal tubule cells, intestinal mucosal cells. There are few inhibitors for this pump. We have two important cardiac glycosides. That means these are the drugs used in cardiac diseases, that is digoxin and digitoxins. Apart from this, we have aubane, which is one more glycoside. This also inhibits sodium potassium ATPase pump.
Now we will look at the disorders associated with sodium. Already we know the reference range for serum sodium is 136 to 145 milliequivalents per liter. Anything below 136 milliequivalents per liter is known as hyponatremia. If the sodium levels go beyond 145 milliequivalents per liter, the condition is known as hypernatremia. So hypernatremia can be seen whenever we have water depletion, or when there is both water and sodium depletion, or when there is excess sodium intake or sodium retention in the body. All these three mechanisms leads to increased sodium content in the body, and the condition is known as hypernatremia. Hyponatremia can be seen when there is retention of water, or it can be seen when there is loss of sodium. So both these mechanisms will lead to decreased sodium content in the body, and this condition is known as hyponatremia. So the causes and the clinical features will be dealt under water and electrolyte balance.